This is not so bad. Okay. Professionalism. Now this is question 1. Professionalism includes which factor? Taking responsibility, not blaming other people, becoming a teammate with your coworkers, keeping your word, all of these. What we don't need to hear is not me, not me, not me, it wasn't my fault, all this kind of stuff, you know. I mean, if it's your fault, you need to say, hey, I screwed up, you know. Yeah, that's right. And
It's not a struggle.
so make sure that you understand that whenever you go to work somewhere, you're going to be the one that takes responsibility, right? Whenever you mess up, when you do, sometimes you might get disgruntled because you don't get credit for something that you did right, but that's just the nature of things. If I had a really nice white shirt on up here and I only had one spot right here, that's all you would notice is that one dark spot where the ink leaked on my shirt. You know what I mean? And so sometimes your boss man is going to fuss at you more than he's going to encourage you, right? Because you're going to have to encourage yourself. But at the same time, you also need to examine yourself and say, if I messed up on this, how did I manage to go that route? And how can I do better next time? See what I mean? And that's basically how that works. You got to do it. So types of communications include written, verbal, nonverbal, or all of these. Remember the story I told you about the guy that, the service writer that wrote the ticket that told me that you had to turn on the left turn signal to start the van? And so
I remember that.
And I got in there, I pulled it in there, and I tried to start it. You know, when I went to start it, I said, I turned on the left turn signal, it fired up. And I pulled it in there, and I turned the turn signal off, and turned on the right turn signal, and it wouldn't start. Turned on the left, and I went to tracking the wires on that, and I found out somebody had wired it to work that way. And I said, why in the world is this all about? You know, and so he says, oh, you just had to know that to start it. So I put that. So why did you put it on a repair line instead of a sticky note? I mean, I thought I was supposed to fix this, and now it burned 30 minutes. You know, that's bad communication. And also there was the old funny that I'm always talking about, the guy that wrote the ticket that said, windshield won't separate rain from water. You know, what do you do with something like that? I mean, that's a genuine write-up that a guy did. But if you basically, whenever you communicate to somebody, it's better to give them a little too much information than it is to give them not enough. You know, because sometimes, well, and what I'm constantly doing to curry communication around here, and I was telling those younger dual enrollment students a couple of days ago when they were in here last week, is that how many times whenever you're working with somebody, particularly a young, moderately inexperienced person, the engine's running, and you say switch it off, and they switch it off, and I say now just turn the key back on, and they start it up. You know what I mean? Don't. And I'm always telling them, always err on the side of caution. Don't start it up unless the guy has said start it up. If he says turn on the key, that doesn't mean start it up. You know, everybody gets confused by that. They'll start it up. And if you're working with your hands in a dangerous place and somebody starts it up, just keep that in mind, that you keep your hands out of there until you know he's not going to start it up. But everybody, you know, it's always good to err on the side of caution and all that. Technician A says customer pay rate is sometimes higher than factory flat rate. Technician B says factory flat rate times are usually longer, given more time compared to aftermarket flat time rates, which technician is correct. Now, customer pay rate, like if you look up in your all data, it's basically got how much it pays to do such and such a job.
Right.
You can look up. You'll notice warranty time is never very long.
Shorter.
It always is. I mean, I've never seen warranty time. Now, some of your recalls, well, the cool thing about recalls is if you can do a recall quick, you can make money because you're doing the same job repetitively, and if you do the same thing over and over again. But like for example, replacing this air valve that they had us doing on one of the recalls on the little LTDs and Thunderbirds and stuff, paid an hour, and I could do it in 20 minutes because I just figured out a way to punch through it real quick, and so I didn't mind getting one of those to do. You know, they had timing belt recall on some of the little Mitsubishi vehicles, and I could knock one of those out in a couple of hours, and it paid like 6 or 7 hours or something like that. They had a head gasket recall program. There's a program which runs out of time and miles. There's a recall which lasts forever. A recall is something that's forevermore. A program is if the car has got less than 100,000 miles on it and it's before September 28th, whatever year, we'll fix this. But after that, we're not going to fix it. That's actually a program service. a field service action is kind of another thing to call that. But anyway, so basically, what you're looking at on number 3 is technician A is only correct. Customer pay rate is just about always higher than factory flat rate on that, particularly if you're working for somebody like Chrysler. You know, I mean, Chrysler has really lousy warranty times, or they used to have. I don't know, for a while I haven't worked at Chrysler. Housekeeping duties of a technician, including keeping items off the 3 is A. Housekeeping duties of a technician can include A, keeping items off the floor whenever possible. B, keeping the work area clean and organized. I mean, you know, why do we need to do that? Cleaning the floor. Do you guys get taught to do that around here? Clean the floor, keep the tools put away, all that. We work on that, all of the above. That's not too hard to figure out. Which of these tactics is involved with skillful listening techniques? Make eye contact with the speaker. Listen with an open mind. A and B, neither A and B. Let me tell you how that works. One time I got in a discussion with a supervisor about some decision he was going to make that made an impact on my job. And so typically whenever you know you're kind of at odds with somebody, what you have a tendency to do is you're not even listening to what they're saying, you're thinking of what you're going to say next. Right? You know what I mean? And they're not listening to what you're saying, they're thinking of what they're going to say next. And so I did 2 things in that meeting. And you got to be really particular when you do these kind of things, and you don't want to, you're not trying to get anybody in trouble, you just want good communication. What I did in this particular case, and you got to figure out what your own way to do it, take notes when the guy's talking or whatever. I had a little voice recorder, you know, on your phone or whatever, when you're having the discussion, you know, you can record it and listen to it later. That's not so you can play it for somebody else, or not so you can post it on Facebook or whatever, but it's basically so you can listen to what the guy was saying, and you'll hear more when you play the recording back than you will. Now technically you got to watch that, because in some places, if you know he doesn't know you're recording him, you know, you may get in trouble. So I'm not saying use this tactic, but write down what the notes, make notes of what he said or whatever, and so that he knows that's what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Whatever happens, everybody needs to be transparent about this. Well, what I did before I ever went in there is I put a memo together and said, this is why this is a bad idea, what you're talking about doing, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. And so when I got through talking to the guy, we didn't really get anywhere sitting here talking across the desk from each other. But when I slid my memo over there, and I said, this is the memo, I said everything in person that I said on the memo. Didn't get contentious, didn't get ugly, just slid it over there. And I went and listened to what he said later, and he really didn't have an argument. I mean, what he was saying didn't hold water, but I didn't bring that up, and I erased the recording before anybody else heard it. I didn't want anybody else hearing it. Didn't even, you know. But the long and the short of it was, we communicated because he read my memo and he was able to read it and reread it and get an idea. Now, you don't want to throw stones or anything. I just basically said, this is why this is a bad idea, blah, 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 blah. I wasn't talking about him, I was talking about the policy. And he decided to reverse course and not do what he was going to do. See what I'm saying? That's communication there, when everybody's actually listening to what you're saying, you know. Because people a lot of times will just, they've already got their mind made up, and they'll just rake whatever you said off the table and, you know, say it their way and all that. And sometimes you got to dig in and hold your ground, you know. But number 5 is basically C. Both A and B. Eye contact, listen with an open mind. That's not complicated. When speaking with a customer, technician A uses profanity only if the customer uses foul language first. Please, you know. Technician B says it's okay to use profane language with younger customers because they can relate better.
I believe
If you wouldn't use foul language in a job interview, if there's anybody you wouldn't use foul language around, you shouldn't use it to begin with. You shouldn't use it to begin with anyway, you know what I'm saying? So number 6 basically is D. You don't use foul language. That's just, hey, come in, girl. Are you, now, open that, go into my email. Are you coming?
I have class at 1, but I'm going to come.
Okay. All right. Oh, you'll come back when you're through at 1? Okay, well, I'll see you when you come back.
Okay.
All right.
Do I need to have paper up there now?
Huh?
I need to have paper up there now?
Go in there and print it. Go into my email, you'll find one that, where I emailed it to myself, work study application, and print it and just fill it out and here it is. But anyway, There's the most common reason, and I heard this on the news the other day, the most common reason that people that make $120,000 a year or more get fired is for using foul language. The most common reason they get fired.
We can find out Walmart for that.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You just don't do that. It's just not a good practice and all that. One of the things I learned early on, I was a redhead and kind of had a temper. One of the things that was revealed to me, if you just laugh it off instead of getting mad, your blood pressure don't go up. You feel a lot better, and you don't use foul language. You know, but when you get mad and throw things, you know, this one guy threw a wrench in his toolbox one day at the Ford place, and it hit the top of his toolbox, and the toolbox threw it back and hit him right between it. You know, what I mean is keep your cool, man. You know what I mean? There's no point in, if you get mad, I told this one guy that was always real competitive, he was a martial arts guy that worked with me, and I says, Mark, if you get mad, the vehicle's winning. I said, it don't care if you're mad or not, you know? It don't care if you bust the windshield out, it's just gonna be laughing at you. I said, so you need to decide that if this is something I'm gonna fix, I'm gonna fix it and I'm gonna win this fight. This thing's gonna drive out of here and it's gonna be running right when I'm done. And that's how you win. You don't win by throwing tools and getting mad and stomping around cussing and all that kind of stuff. How many ASE tests must be passed to become a master automotive technician? You gotta pass 8 of them. How many years of experience are required to achieve ASE certification?
2.
You gotta have a year in this program, is worth a year. A year and a half, I'm sorry, is worth a year. And then you go to work in the field another year, then you can wear the patch. Now they make you fill out a little thing and all. So credit for how many years of work experience may be substituted by attending automotive service training. It would be 1 year. That's basically the right answer to that one. Technicians should do all of the following to prepare to take the ASE certification test, except: should you eat a big meal? Should you try to keep your work schedule light the day of the test? Should you have a photo ID entry ticket and number 2 pencils? Now I will tell you the way the ASE test is done now is different. You don't do the number 2 pencils thing. What you do now is you go in there, they've got a room in there with cubicles and computers, and when you go in there, as soon as you step in the door, they make sure you have an appointment, because you got to pick the seat today. They have you empty your pockets into a locker. I mean all your pockets. Then you go into the little inner sanctum in there right before you go into the room, and they make you pull your pockets inside out, pull your breeches up so they can see your socks. They make you, they do everything except pat you down, you know what I mean? Now they don't put their hand on you, but they will take a wand like the airport people do and go over you with it. I mean, they even want you to take your belt off. I mean, it's just a real serious, watch just has to come off, jewelry, rings, whatever. I went in there one day and I says, can I take a little piece of candy in here? They said, no. Take that out of your pocket, put it in the locker, and all that. So, I mean, what I'm saying is they're dead serious about making sure there's no cheating on these tests, because there's a heck of a lot at stake there. And when you go in there, they have the computer set up, and your test that you've paid for already is looking at you. And then you go through the thing. And what you do when you're taking an AIC test is just relax. Don't go in there like this. Just relax. It's not like a nuclear bomb is going to go off if you don't make a perfect score. But there is some money that's been spent on the test, so be aware of that. And I'm, not everybody, I'm not like a lot of other people. The way that I go about taking a test is different. I basically, I've never studied for an ASE test and I've never failed one. But what you have to do is you've got to commit stuff to memory. You've got to learn how these people think. You've got to figure out they're not talking about any one particular car. These are generic questions that will apply to any vehicle you're working on, typically. They're not going to have something that only applies to Chevys, Fords, Toyotas, Hondas. They're going to have something that will apply to any and every car. Like where do you find the tire pressure specs? And if, they'll have on the side of the tire or, and on the door jamb or whatever, basically you're gonna, it's a question that it works on all that. And not that the questions aren't typically that hard. Now when you get into your advanced engine performance, it's a little dicier, but if you can read a schematic and you can think and you understand scan tool readings, you have to pass all of your other ones before you can pass that one though. And don't even try light vehicle diesel unless you know something about those vehicles, because you will crash and burn on those. I took that one just for the fun of it to see if I could pass it, you know. The G1 test covers the car from the front to the rear. G1 test covers the car from the front to the rear. If you're pretty familiar with all of this stuff, you can sail through the G1, and that's maintenance and light repair, which basically means you're somebody that's got ASE certification or qualified to do light work on anything.
Yes, sir. I did have one question about the ASE test. Which ones would you say would be most important to take? How long you do work?
Depends on what kind of work you're going to be doing. If you're working in a place, well, like Zane right now is working at Firestone. If you're working in a place where you're going to be doing brakes and tires and suspension and that kind of thing, steering and suspension and brakes. See, if you're working at a place where you're going to be doing electrical work, electrical's pretty darn important though, because just about everybody wants you to know electrical. You know what I mean? So you need to be able to pass electrical. If I was going to just dive in there and I had never took one before, the first one I'd probably take was electrical. The one you're most comfortable with and are sure you can pass, you know, Justin would probably go into engine repair because he's all about engines. You know what I mean? So that's how it. But they ask a lot of questions, you know, that go beyond rebuilding a 351 modified too. So, all right. So this one Chevrolet service manager told me, he said some of these yo-yos will build a 350 in the backyard of their house and manage to get it started, and they'll think they're ready for the dealership floor. He laughs about that, you know. All right. Technicians should do all of the following to prepare to take the ASE except, and obviously number 10 is you don't want to eat a big meal. When you eat a big meal, it causes you to be sluggish and not think clearly a lot of times. So don't go there. How can a technician register to take the ASE test? Now you have to do it online now. That's the only way you can do it's online, but on number 11, if you want to get the answer right and somebody's graded as any of these, but online is the only way you can do it now because the paper and pencil tests are all gone. According to technicians that take the exam, which question type is the most difficult? Multiple choice single answer, technician A, technician B, most likely type questions, all of these except questions.
All of these except.
Well, the ones that most people don't like the technician A and B questions, and the reason for that is that's two questions in one. That's like two true-false questions. If technician A says this, you got to say, is that true or false? If technician B says this, you got to say, is that true or false? See what I mean? And then if both of them are false, it's neither if one of them is true. You see where I'm going with that? I mean, so that's the right answer to that question I just asked, which would be number 12 is B. Most people hate technician A and technician B questions, and sample ASE tests will just about always have technician A and B questions on them. Technician A says you only have to pay for a test one time. If you fail, you can take it again for free. Technician B says a photo ID is needed to enter the test center. Yes, they are going to have to know who you are. You know what I mean? In some states, you can vote without a photo ID, because you're going to be putting out an ID to take this test, right? All right, so that's number 12. I mean, that's number 13, isn't it? Number 13 is going to be B. You cannot take the test again for free. They won't give you nothing. All right. Two technicians are discussing the safe use of a wrench. Technician A says the wrench should be pulled toward you. Technician B says the wrench should be pushed away from you. Which technician is correct? That's A only, but whoever wrote that question or whoever made that rule hasn't ever worked on a vehicle. Because I'm telling you, there are some times when the only choice you have is to push. Now the reason you pull instead of pushing is when if you're pushing and it breaks loose, you can bark a knuckle. You know, you hurt yourself if it breaks loose suddenly. I was pushing on a wrench one time working on a forklift, and big old hydraulic line, 1.5 wrench, and this thing was really heavy, and pushing it, you know, moving it by hand wasn't an option. So I put my foot against it, you know, and when that thing broke loose, it broke loose really suddenly, and my leg snapped out straight, and it hyperextended my knee. Boy, did that ever hurt. I'd been jogging every morning, wasn't able to jog for a month and a half after that, because that knee was, but it was because it broke loose all at once, and my leg, you know, I figured it was going to be, you know, one of these squeaky things when it comes loose, but duh, it was a hydraulic line, you know, broke loose real fast. Anyway, that hurt. You ever hyperextended a knee? If you hadn't, you had fun. Okay. But anyway, sometimes you're going to have to push. The right answer to this one is actually going to be A, but you can't do that on every one. Now the Snap-on guy, tool man, He says you're not even supposed to use a ratchet to break a bolt loose. You're supposed to use a breaker bar, break it loose, and then put your little ratchet on there and take it off. I'm gonna use my ratchet to break it loose. I'm sorry, you know? And I'm liable to use whatever I can do with a Peter pipe or, huh?
You can't do it, you have to go on ratchet.
Yeah, that's right. Exhaust hoses should be used because one of the exhaust gases can be deadly in a high concentration. This gas is, you know, the exhaust hoses over here like we got hanging that you hit me in the back with a while ago.
Carbon monoxide.
Carbon monoxide. Yeah, you're gonna put those on there, particularly in the winter when we got the doors closed and we're working on vehicles. We turn on the fans and we let the exhaust leave. And each service bay has got 2 hoses, so if it's got dual exhaust, you can put 2 hoses on it. So on your truck, I think it's got 2 pipes coming out right together, so you can put 1 pipe on 2 hoses. Let's see, the process of combustion occurring without an open flame is called what? Is it called the process of combustion occurring without an open flame? What is that when you're in a shop? Where can that happen?
Welding, if you have rags or something.
All the rags piled up in a pile can just catch fire all by themselves. Have you ever been in a barn where the hay or something was stacked and you felt that the hay was really, really hot even in the winter? That's a chemical reaction. And those rags can go through a chemical reaction. If they get hot enough, they can just burst into flame. That happened down at Diesel. Now, he had them in a metal bin, which is like they're supposed to be, but it literally, they caught fire in that bin all by themselves. Nobody threw a spark over there or nothing like that. Spontaneous combustion. That's what that is. Which item is usually not included in a first aid kit? A fire blanket is not included in a first aid kit. Fire blanket is something you throw over stuff that you don't want burned while you're working nearby, you know. Proper working level is what? Basically, you're wanting to be working at waist height, you know, not bending over. That's why it's important if you've got a lift in the stall, or even if you got a jack and stands, if you're working on a kind of a small, low car, you know, and you're going to be working on that thing all day, raise that thing up about waist high and just stand there and work on it instead of bending over. Because, boy, your back will really be bothering you at the end of the day. You know, you don't want that. When hammering an aluminum part, it's best to pound with what? Of course, I know nobody in here has ever hit any piece of aluminum with a steel hammer, right? Let me ask you this: How do you anneal aluminum? You know, when you anneal a metal, you make it soft. You know, how do you anneal it?
Heat it.
Well, it's more complicated than that. What you have to do to anneal aluminum is get your torch and heat it up where it's blowing the black smoke, right? You got a piece of hardened aluminum you want to soften. You smoke that hardened piece of aluminum up with that smoke. And then you dial up to a neutral flame and you play that flame all over that piece of aluminum until you've burned all of that smoke off, a little at a time. And then you turn off your flame, and then as the aluminum cools off, it'll be soft. Now, do you know how to anneal brass? If you got brass that's brittle and hard and you want to anneal it and make it soft, this is going to be a surprise. Heat it up, that makes it soft. That makes steel hard, but it makes brass soft. Welcome to the wonderful world of metallurgy. All right, so, and basically, when you're drilling a hole in a piece of iron or steel, and you get that bit spinning too fast and it begins to heat up, it will temper that steel and it will soften the bit. It takes the temper out of the bit and puts temper in the steel, and then you can't drill nothing. That's why I'm always telling, if you're going to drill, don't drill fast or you'll make a problem for yourself. You know, faster is not better when you're drilling a hole. You knew this, didn't you? I heard about this drill bit that was passed all over the world by the Japanese engineers, and it was supposed to be the smallest and the hardest drill bit anywhere in the world. Did you hear about that? When they brought it back from Germany, it had a hole drilled through it. Probably took a little bit. I've heard that all my life. It was funny. Anyway, technician A uses 3-prong electrical cords when possible. Now, when do you not need a 3-prong electrical cord?
When there's only 2 prongs.
I know, but what kind of equipment only has 2-prong cords on it?
Fans,
Huh?
fans, some fans.
Yeah, these little small fans out here. Well, why do the fans on the wall have 3-prong cords and the fans on the floor only have 2-prong cords?
More power going to it.
What's a 3rd prong for anyway?
Ground.
I mean, what happens if you don't have it? You ever been fired up? You can get fired up. I was under my house. I built that house in Little Plains, and I was under there with my knees in the wet dirt, and my dad's old steel drill, you know, the whole case on it was, well, aluminum. And the 3rd prong had been gone for years, and that tried to fire me up. It shock you, man. You're just looking for ground through you. Now, if you've got a drill like one of these Makitas that we've got that's got a plastic double insulated, or it's something like that, you know, that you don't have metal that's where it can come through the body of the drill and look for a ground through you. So that's when you get fired up, is when it goes through you to ground. Right? That's not good, is it? No, it ain't. Do you like getting shocked? Some people do. You know what I mean? I told my kids, I said, if you ever are grabbing something you think may be electrified, make sure you touch it with the back of your hand instead of the front, so you don't grab it, you know. And one day we were out there on this farm, and there was an electric fence over there. And Luke says, well, this is not so bad. And I looked over there at what he was doing, and he had his hand laid on the electric fence, and every time it, you know, he said, look at that, that's not too bad. I said, I would not do that. My cousin, one day, whenever he came to visit when I was just a little boy. We had a hog pen in the backyard. And I says, that's an electric fence, Denny. If you touch it, it will shock you. So don't touch that electric fence. It's got about 40,000 volts going through. I mean, you know, I was like 6 years old or something, and I knew better, because I'd been there, man. That thing lights you up. He picked up a piece of a chrome faucet that was laying over here and touched the fence with it. Ah! And I said, what is wrong with this guy? You know, he's a city boy and he doesn't understand. Don't touch the electric fence that's around the hog pen, you know. Anyway, that was a little story there. Good grief, you know. All right, everybody knows what all the answers are to fundamentals test 2 now?
Well, they're both 20's both.
Huh?
20's both.
Oh, 20. Read the question to me, because I forgot it.
It's the one we we're just talking about, 3-prong and double insulated.
Yeah, double insulated, you don't have to have 3 prongs. If it's not double insulated, you do need 3 prongs.
Okay, so that's your.
But this
Figure
isn't
it out.
like a question, it's a technician B uses double insulated electrical